the central message. And today, friends, and for the rest of this week and next week, we're going to kind of follow the same pattern of reading a story, talking about the story elements, and then the next day using the story elements to write a paragraph.
Sound good? All right, so we are on lesson 6. And like Miss Dishley said, we're reading a new story today. This story is called The Ant and the Grasshopper. This is a really fun one. There's actually 2 versions of this story. So we might read both or we might just read one. We'll let you know. Okay?
It's a cute story though.
Yeah, and it's pretty short. Who is that? Adanya, friend, are you ready? Okay. We're not going to sing We Do What We Can today. All right. Here are our learning targets for today. I can recount the fable, The Ants and the Grasshopper, using the story elements, and I can determine the central message of The Ants and the Grasshopper based on how the characters respond to the problem or the challenge. Who can tell us what the word recount means? To recount the story. What does that mean? Imad?
It means to recount is to read the story.
Not quite to reread. I'll read it and then I'll recount it to you with my voice. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to read it again, but I'm going to tell you what?
Is she going to tell you everything or only the very important parts?
Very important parts.
Yeah. So I'm going to take all the really important information. I'm going to share that with you. So you won't even have to read it. Just kidding. But that's basically the goal, is to tell somebody who's never read it all the most important parts. Okay. What is a fable, friends? Because this target says we're going to recount a fable. What does that mean? Looking for a hand. London. What's a fable? Do you know, friend? Adanya?
Something that's fake.
Something that's fake? Yeah.
It is fake. You're right. So the characters that we've been reading about, like the lizard was talking to the person, that doesn't really happen. So you're right. It is fake. But the super important thing about a fable is that it teaches you a lesson.
Yeah. So there's going to be a really important central message throughout the whole story. And it is fictional. You're right. So it's made up. A fable is something like a story that's really old, and there's like different versions of it. Like I said, there's 2 versions of this story. What's another example of a fable? I'm trying to think of one that you guys would know. The 3 wolves.
Three Little Pigs.
Are you familiar with the 3 wolves and the pig?
It's the 3 Little Pigs.
The 3 the 3 little pigs and the wolf. Oh my goodness. Right.
There is one though, I think, that they've like remade into like the 3 wolves, and the pig is the bad one.
The pigs are the bad guys. There's different versions of it, is my point, that people write different versions of the same story. All right, so we're going to read you this story, this fable, friends. And while we read, you want to be listening for the story elements. So in case you forgot, you're going to be listening for things like the setting, the characters, the problem, the solution, and the lesson or the central message, okay?
Perfect.
Thumb up if you're ready to hear it. Good job. Briella, thank you. Imad, thank you. Anaya, thank you. London, thank you.
Myra, thank you.
Perfect. All right, let's get started. You want to go first?
Sure. I'll read section number 1 of The Ants and the Grasshopper.
You follow along right over here.
Yep. One bright day in late autumn, a family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat.
A fiddle is this instrument right here. See it right there? That's a fiddle.
What does the word bustling mean?
Oh,
When you hear the word bustling,
it says the family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine. What do you think it means? Briella?
Being loudly?
What'd you say?
Being loud.
Being
being
loud.
loud? Maybe.
Bustling is kind of like moving around really fast and like.
Yeah, so everyone take your hands like this and bustle them around. Bustle your fingers. That's what bustling is. It's like moving all around. You know how ants, they like move around in their ant holes? That's kind of what bustling is. They're bustling about.
All right, let's continue. You can stop bustling. What? Cried the ants in surprise. Haven't you stored anything away for winter? What in the world were you doing all last summer?
I didn't have time to store up any food, whined the grasshopper. I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone.
The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. Making music, were you? They cried. Very well, now dance. And they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on with their work. Okay, so what is happening? Who are our two main characters in this story, in this fable? Myra?
The grasshopper and the ants.
Oh,
Good
we
job.
have the grasshopper. We have the ants. Where does this story take place? What's the setting? London? You have to unmute. There you go.
Talk closer to the computer, honey. In the forest?
Yeah, they're somewhere outside.
Yeah, somewhere outside. Absolutely.
Good job. So this one's kind of tricky. You kind of have to think about what the problem is.
They don't come out and tell you this is the problem.
Yeah, so think about what might be happening. Maybe we should read it one more time, Miss Ishala.
I'd love to. And everyone think what the problem is. We know the characters, we know the setting, but what is the problem?
Think about
I can start it.
and what
I
they
can start
did.
it. One bright day in late autumn, that's like fall, a family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer, when a starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat.
So the grasshopper is starving and the ants have food stored up. Think about that. What? Cried the ants in surprise. Haven't you stored anything away for the winter? What in the world were you doing all last summer?
I didn't have time to store up any food, whined the grasshopper. I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone.
The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. Making music, were you? They cried. Very well, now dance. And they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on with their work. Okay, so think about what is the problem here? What's happening that is bad? What's the challenge? Briella?
The problem was that the grasshopper didn't store any food, and the ants didn't let them eat.
You're right. That was a problem. The grasshopper didn't store up any food. What season was the grasshopper supposed to be storing up food for?
Oh, No, summer.
That's when he was supposed to be storing the food, but instead he was making music.
Who is doing that? Stop.
Who or what season do you think they were storing the food up for?
The winter.
Yes, kiss your brain. The grasshopper was supposed to be storing food for the winter because in wintertime, they don't get to leave their little homes because it's too cold.
And
So
all the
animals,
snow.
so the animals, they store food in their homes, but the grasshopper, was he very concerned about the winter coming?
No,
No.
he didn't think ahead, right?
He didn't plan ahead. He wasn't responsible. In fact, he was very irresponsible.
I don't know, Adanya. I don't know what was happening with the blue stuff. If that was you, I turned it off. You can't do it anymore, but please don't do that. Okay?
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
That was really interesting. So, what?
Woo, what?
Never mind. So the problem is that they don't have any food, right? But the ants do. They're all set. So I want to ask you this question. Is the problem solved in this story? Does the problem ever get solved? I see you shaking your heads. No, the ants just say, well, too
Go
bad.
dance. You played music, you learned how to play your music, so go dance to it.
Yeah.
We're not going to share our work, all our food that we stored up.
What actions did the ants take in this story that show responsibility?
How are the ants responsible?
Imad?
The ants were responsible because they didn't lose their food, or they didn't lose their food, and they got their food. They got their food, not like the grasshopper.
Yeah, they didn't wait until the last minute to get their food together. They did it in advance. They prepared and were responsible. Good job, Imad. All right, so like we said, your job is going to be to go on to your Google slide that will be posted at 10:30 and to fill out all of these story elements. So I want to keep helping you and keep thinking with you through some of these questions. So let's think about the chunks of the story. What happens in the beginning of this story? So what's like the first thing that happens before the major problem shows up? London, you might have to type because I'm not sure we can hear you, but try to talk. We'll see.
Let me see if I can read your lips. Wait, I got to find you. Okay, go. So what happens in the beginning?
One second. Okay, you're going to type it?
Perfect.
Okay, so while she types that, think about what you would say if we called on you. What happens in the beginning of the ants and the grasshopper? I'm going to give London a chance to type it and then we'll take other answers, okay? Just be thinking about it. Thanks for being patient, friend. Sometimes there are technical difficulties, you know? Did you type, London? Oh, the ants were busy. You're right. And what else was happening at the beginning? What did the grasshopper do? Someone else can answer too. So the ants are busy working, right? They're collecting their food. What else? What's the grasshopper do? Imad, can you help us?
Grasshopper, he just plays music and he doesn't worry about what food he's supposed to prepare for winter.
Right. He just walks up with his fiddle and he's like, what you doing, guys?
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry, yeah. And what happens in the middle? What happens after that? Adanya? You have to unmute yourself.
Talk close to the computer.
What happens after the middle is the end, and then
What happens in the middle though, sweetie?
they respond to the problem.
Okay. How do they respond to the problem?
They by fixing it, and
So we said, Adanya, that they don't fix the problem in this story, right? So first, in the beginning, the ants are working and the grasshopper comes up with his fiddle. Then what do they talk about in the middle?
they find
I can go back. What do the ants ask the grasshopper in the middle of the story? Can someone help you? Okay, Briella, what happens in the middle?
middle, the ants ask the question, and the question is, how come he didn't, weren't you supposed to get your food?
Exactly. The ants are like, wait a minute, Mr. Grasshopper, you didn't save any food? Weren't you supposed to do that in the fall and in the summer? He's like, no, I was making music. And then what happens in the end? Do the ants help Mr. Grasshopper, or do the ants kind of say like, sorry, too bad? Who wants to answer that? Tamira. Do the ants help Mr. Grasshopper?
No,
No, what do they say to him?
they said, when you make your music, you can dance.
Yeah.
They said, I guess you can go dance because you didn't keep any food. You're not going to be eating. So what do we think is the central message or the lesson here? What do you think the author here is trying to teach us while we read this story? You want to call on somebody, Miss Tisha?
Sure. Let's call on, let's see, who is watching? Briella, do you know what the central message, what the author is trying to teach us?
The message is to be responsible.
Absolutely.
It's your brain friend. Good job, guys.
Good job.
I see that most of you were focused while we read and talked about that story, so thank you. I agree with Briella that the message or the lesson here is that you should think ahead, right? And be responsible for your taking care of yourself, right? And making sure you're prepared for things. So good job. I will show you quickly what your assignment looks like, but it looks the same as it has. Brene, what's wrong? What's going on? You want to type it? Okay, so in here, you're going to type the setting and the characters, the problem and the solution, the response to the problem, and the central message. I think, Miss Tishley, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about all 6 of those things, right?
We sure did. And if anyone has any questions about any of it, rewatch the video. It's going to be posted.
Yeah. You can find all of that discussion that we had through watching it, or you can read the text yourself. So you can pull up the video and pause it when we show the story, and you can read it yourself and figure out what's going on, okay? All right. Do you have questions that you need answered before we go?
I said the ants,
The ant is not happy. Gotcha.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you weren't happy. I was
Yeah, I
worried.
thought you meant you weren't happy too. You're right. The ants weren't happy with the grasshopper. They were kind of disappointed in him.
Yeah, they're like, friend, what is going on? You didn't do what you needed to do. Absolutely. Okay, so your target, friends, is to recount all those important story elements and the central message and put them into your story elements.
only a little bit of us.
What? I can't hear you.
I can't either.
All right, friends. So if you're ready, go ahead and get started and we'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Bye, friends.
Why is only 9 of us?